Welcome back. Climate change, or global warming, is one of the world's biggest stories, but the science and the politics make it a tough story to get your head around, and that goes for reporters as well as news consumers. Climate change skeptics argue that most reporters lean to the political left and have simply bought in to the Green Movement's agenda. Environmental activists counter that the media just woke up late to the climate change story and are making up for lost time on an issue of huge importance. Taking the temperature now on the debate around eco-journalism, the Listening Post's Meenakshi Ravi.
Floods, struggling rainforests, and endangered animals. The environment is one of the biggest stories in the world, and for the media, it throws up some big challenges.
The issues at stake are so complicated that it's actually quite a unique case in the communication of science.
Overblown alarmism should be cut out of stories, as well as overblown activism.
That means we can't just have reporting which is one-sided, just reporting the environmentalist's view.
These glaciers seem to have a role that scientists are only just beginning to understand.
Environmental reporting is a complex beat based heavily on scientific data. But few reporters are science specialists, and that is a problem for a story like this, which demands expertise in the reporting.
Normally, when there's a science story in the media, it's about one piece of scientific data, which is very easy to discuss and contest. But with environmental science, it's about what's your take on thousands and thousands of different bits of scientific evidence, and how do you synthesize those, how do you bring those together and come to your own verdict, your own interpretation. And I think that's what makes it particularly, almost uniquely difficult for mainstream media to cover.
And there's the problem of addressing both sides of the climate change debate.
How do you cope with the minority of climate skeptics? What kind of time do you give them? Do you give them equal time with the mainstream climate scientists? Do you put them in a small corner and report them from time to time, or do you simply ignore them? That's a big issue, and I don't think that's fully resolved yet.
In Britain, the skepticism of documentary maker Martin Durkin attracted lots of criticism. His film, The Great Global Warming Swindle, questioned the human contribution to climate change.
The global warming alarm is dressed up as science, but it's not science, it's propaganda.
A very misleading piece of television was The Great Global Warming Swindle. That misrepresented the views of specific people in the show who've complained since. It also deliberately edited out portions of the graphs that disagreed with its central hypothesis. I'm always very enthusiastic about hearing views that go against my own, but if I can't trust that a television show is actually telling me everything that I need to know, if they're sort of deliberately editing out facts, even in one little portion of one graph, then it's a waste of my time more than anything else to sit through a program like that.
To some, however, the drubbing given to the global warming swindle seemed less to do with factual inaccuracies and more to do with the media's reluctance to give space to skeptics.
Each day, news reports about man-made global warming grow more fantastically apocalyptic. I'm really flabbergasted because, we're being asked to just take our word for it, by a certain section of the scientific community, and they're sort of closely allied with journalists and politicians. I certainly don't think we should be just rubber stamping the proclaimed consensus view on this.
But there's more than science and skepticism to eco-journalism. Green issues are about economics and big corporate money.
I'm of the opinion that corporate backing and funding is a real problem for the environmental movement. We've just seen Live Earth, for instance, and how heavily that was backed by corporations. And if you'll notice, its message was pretty skimpy.
We need your help for this next song!
What I see much more than corporate backing helping environmentalism is corporate backing co-opting environmentalism and watering it down and defining it in a way that's acceptable to corporate advertisers. I see environmentalism as a very important growing grassroots movement that's very much in the face of corporations, because corporate economic systems are so fundamentally, environmentally not sustainable.
Making environmental journalism yet more complex is the difficulty in finding the right tone with which to report issues.
Readers have become very leery of articles they perceive as being alarmist, gloom and doom type stories.
A new terror threat could be coming from within U.S. borders. A new report says these fanatics are demanding that America stop hurting animals and destroying the environment.
They also don't like articles that are too green or overly optimistic about how we should all get in line and save the planet.
When you've finished with your newspaper or magazine, recycle it, because in only 7 days, they can be new newspapers. Recycle, the possibilities are endless.
The public increasingly understands how ecosystems and environmental issues affect our daily lives, and it's a question of finding the proper emphasis and framing. People don't like to be scared, made to feel guilty, or told what to do.
Scientific and political complexity, the corporate interest in spinning the story, and the alarmist trap. Environmental reporting is a tough nut to crack, and there tends to be a pattern depending on which part of the world the reporter is from.
I really think that there is a fundamental difference between the way that the developing world and the developed world treats the environment. In the developing world, it's a question of the quantity of life, the very issue of survival, whether there's enough food, energy, fuel to cook food with, is a fundamental issue of well-being of life itself. In the developed world, in the other sense, in the industrial world, it's a question of the quality of life, whether the air is clean, the water is free of pollutants. It's not a very issue of survival, but of quality of life.
Ecojournalism may be an imperfect science, but the coverage of green issues is on the rise.
I would say environmental journalism is popular now because of the growing public awareness in the face of global climate change, in the face of high gas and oil prices, that indeed there is a global environmental crisis. And so the media is now treating the issue seriously again.
Here are some Global Village voices with their take on climate change and how that story is covered.
The main challenge we have now, and let's take the biggest issue of all, climate change, is the way that some parts of the media insist on raking up what are essentially fringe views now. I think we can have that debate, but there's a danger that it's given too much airtime, and it is actually a distraction from the news media and the broadcast media being able to actually focus and engage with their audiences on what needs to happen and what the role of society and individuals in that society really is.
I think journals covering environmental issues and science issues today are better prepared than they've ever been to cover these beats. The question is whether or not the news organizations they're working for are providing them the infrastructure and the support they need internally. And I have real concerns about that. I think that too is a function of conglomeration, the consolidation of news organizations, fewer ownerships of major news outlets, more emphasis on entertainment and not just on news.
Finally, there's a fun piece of video making the rounds on the World Wide Web these days. It was posted to coincide with Condoleezza Rice's recent trip to the Middle East and the U.S. Secretary of State's meetings with political leaders there. It's based on a popular Arabic song called Shatter, Shatter. And the subtitles will spell out why we made it our Internet Video of the Week. We'll see you next time at The Listening Post.
مين بده يغني معي غنية شاطر 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 يلي بيسمع كلمة أهله شو منقله شاطر شاطر يلي بيقعد عاقل وحده شو منقله شاطر شاطر يلي